Welcome, everyone. This is Pine Leaf Needles, and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Andang,
Hey, everybody.
Draculetta,
Greetings, everyone.
and Trish.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
All right, well, we need a game name for you, Trish.
I know. Well, and dang, and I talked about that, but I'm not like you guys, I don't have like that consistent name thing going on. And since people already know me and my other guys as, in the podcast that I lead, I thought, well, we could call me Trailer Trish.
We'll leave it at Trish for now.
I live in a big travel, for people to know, I live in a large travel trailer. That's my home. So I was telling somebody that I wasn't trailer trash, and they go, no, you're Trailer Trish.
That was me.
Trailer Trish. All
Yes, I
right.
know. I'm not going to say who it was that said that.
They definitely
All
didn't
right,
whisper
very
something just
well.
now. But yeah, we're glad to have Trish as a new host on the show.
I'm so excited. This is great. This is great. Even well, you didn't hold it against me for winning the skirmish last week. I really appreciate that.
Well, we
Okay.
wanted a rematch. That's really the only reason we invited you back.
All right, let's head into the game news. The first one is that new server transfer features have been announced. This is one of a series of posts, and because they do not know everything yet, but this is what they know so far. And Andang, anything special about this?
There's a lot of stuff special. They kind of basically, they finally detailed their plan for the server transfers, at least a rough outline. And it's basically one of the big things that's coming with this is a new launcher service. And they say we are changing our character and account transfer service to occur in the game launcher itself. No longer will you need to find a website to conduct a transfer. You just have to launch the game and go from there. And I think that that is probably the best improvement that they're making to the character transfer. It's going to be so convenient, and people are going to be ready to use it. It wasn't too much of a problem to go over, but it makes sense that they changed the server names now in the launcher and stuff like that. And so all the pieces of the puzzle are finally starting to come together. They're also allowing various things to take place in account transfer. Um, this is a quote. This new checkbox in the server transfer interface will allow the transfer of all account level items from one server to another. These items include the following: account shared currency, Mithril coins and skirmish, shared storage, housing storage, wardrobe, and destiny, because destiny points are still a thing.
I know that from personal experience.
And so, this is great. I didn't expect housing storage. I thought that that for sure was not going to be transferable, but it seems that they've found ways to code it all. And since it's taking place through the launcher, it sounds like it's all fairly automated. And so, assuming it all works right when they go
Yeah,
into beta
assuming it
testing
works,
and
that's the
all that
tricky part.
stuff, this is really good news. I mean, this is much better than what they were kind of, because they weren't wanting to confirm stuff earlier, so they were kind of wishy-washy on just how robust it was going to be. But this list is a really good list, and I'm glad that they're doing it through the launcher and that sort of stuff. Drac, what are your thoughts on this?
If they get it worked out and get the kinks worked out, which I'm sure they'll be kinks, and it actually does what they say it's going to do, I think it's going to be a great thing.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
see, though, that one of the things they are is that they are going to use it for copying during probably the update 16 would be my guess, because or during the early spring where they'll be testing it on Borar. So I presume it means copy stuff to Borar and see does that work successfully.
Yeah, I mean, it'll depend. It seems like things are moving fairly quickly. I'm kind of
It
hoping that they'll put just this up for testing on beta. That would be awesome if they could.
That's possible.
I really wonder if they're trying to be a little overzealous with a lot of this, though. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, not to be negative on it, but with their track record for stuff they've done in the past, it's like, you know what I mean? I hate,
Overly ambitious.
yeah, I hate to say it, but can they do all this, you think, and make it work good? I hope so.
Well, obviously that remains to be seen. Um, but I feel like Vivian is relatively cautious on when she mentions stuff. Now, she did make one mistake when she didn't realize that EU couldn't be copied over to US, but everything else that she said, I feel confident that, she is going to make sure that it gets done or, try their hardest. And I think that at least internally that they've have some kind of working of these things because they've been kind of hinting at, we're going to try to get this stuff to be transferable for basically since Vivian announced that there's going to be server transfers, and they haven't been confirming anything till now. So that makes me think that they at least have like a prototype that's working fairly well. Obviously, when you take that to the live servers, everything could change, but I'd be surprised if they haven't at least tested it to some degree because they were so weary of confirming stuff earlier. Um, they did continue on by saying that possible features that they hope to make a reality include a kinship transfer, which allows you to transfer kinship data to the new server. That seems like it'd be very involved and probably really tough to do, but at the end of the day, it is all data, so maybe it's possible. That'll be
I have a
interesting.
question before Pine Leaf moves us on.
Yep.
Um, so we've been talking about, and all the news has been about the fact that they want to migrate people off of certain servers. Is what we're talking about? Is this like you could move to any server, or is this still in the context of trying to move people off of certain servers?
Well, what they've said is that when you get moved off of a server, you'll get to pick what server you want to go to.
Oh, okay.
And
All right.
so these features that they're mentioning are going to allow for whenever that takes place, them to be able to transfer, and also for the indefinite future as long as they want to keep using this system. So they're building something robust to allow character transfers for a long time, hopefully. Um,
Yeah.
Now,
This will become the way it's done at some point. It'll
yeah,
just
and they
become.
did say it's going to be
Yeah.
free at least while for those affected. They haven't really confirmed if it's going to be free to everyone yet to transfer during this period.
Yeah.
And
They
they
did.
haven't confirmed if it's going to be costing money later on down the road, after the period ends.
It sounds like, yeah, so far it sounds like if either the server is closing or you're going from a low pop to a high pop is the most likely scenario where it's going to be free. The other stuff, we don't know
Yeah, I'm
yet.
hoping since they have everything automated now. I mean, yes, they are investing money to make this happen, obviously, at the very least, just employee time. Um, I'm hoping, though, that they do keep this service free because being able to transfer at any moment will keep players in the game. Because if your only reason that, a lot of players' reasons that they're leaving usually is because there's no one to play with or there's too many people to play with. And so if you can transfer at any time for free to another server, that would be a huge problem solver for a lot of players' interest in the game, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
The question is, if it's too easy to transfer at the drop of a hat, then it's possible that griefers may use that to their advantage.
Yeah, that's definitely a negative, but maybe they'll put a limit like you can only transfer this many times in a year or something.
Right.
Um,
So
it
just
does,
take that into account.
yep, it does continue on saying, and this has been a fairly big issue that people are waiting to see how it's implemented, but they're not too happy about, and that's naming priorities. One of the main concerns is of players keeping their names. We are looking into a change in the way name conflicts are handled to give priority to the active characters. More details on this in future on this feature as this feature develops. Wow.
What do they mean by
Um,
active characters? You mean like if
Well,
well,
somebody's is more recently on and is showing more time in game?
that's what most players are thinking, and that's
Okay.
causing a lot of fear in the community because let's say someone transfers over from another server and they've been playing, um, Andang for 10 years. And they've been there since like the early beta of LOTRO, and they've been playing for that long. Are they going to be able to make it to where I can't be named Andang on the server I've been on the entire time?
Yeah. I
Right.
think you've been active enough so that that's not going to be a
Well,
problem. I
yes,
think,
but that's just an example I'm giving where,
yeah,
you know, let's say that both players are very active. Are they just going to look at which one's been around longer, or are they going to do the transfer? There's been a lot of questions by the
yeah.
community as to what this has been, and there's been no clarification made yet
That's because
because
they haven't decided yet. That's why she said
exactly.
more information later.
And so, this has caused a major debate, and so I'm hoping that, and I'm sure that the devs are looking through at least some of it
Yeah.
to try to decide what they do.
But
Um,
I
Go ahead,
but I
Pine.
know there's at least one server where the person who was Pineleaf and there was someone who created the character about 7 years ago is a level 8 champion, and I'm sure that person hasn't been logging in for the last 7 years.
Yeah, yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see what comes of that. If anything, they might, just keep the current system, which is if you transfer to a server where someone has your name and they've had it for however long, then they'll be able to keep it because this other way might cause too many complications. It'll be interesting to see what happens. They're both
Yep.
kind of lose-lose situations depending on which situation you're actually in at the given moment. But it'll be interesting to see what happens.
All right, very well then. Let's move into roving threats, which is something that is currently in beta. And Andang, it looks like you did a little video displaying these new roving threats.
It was a
Anything interesting in them?
it was a big video, Pine Leaf. It was a very big video.
Big video?
Anyway, so yeah, roving threats are being tested currently with update 15.2 on Bulwer, and basically they've added new roving threats, which are level 100 enemies for small fellowships and fellowships in 5 various zones around Middle-earth. Now they're already in Central Gondor, but they've added them in Western Gondor, Angmar, Florchel, and the Misty Mountains. And so basically completing these quests will give you tokens, which you can exchange for various items, including first age legendary items.
And how's the level 45 supposed to survive with these roving threats at 100 going about?
Well, and that's something I pointed out in my video. I don't know why they're level 100. I don't know why a level 100 would want to go back to Angmar and fight off level 100s.
I
It,
think that's the point. I think they're trying to drive people back to the older content.
but why? There's no purpose to, in theory, the level 100's already done all that content. It makes no sense why. I've not heard one really good argument why they should be there. I mean, yeah, it's nice, change of scenery, but it just doesn't make any sense. It causes many more problems than I think it does helping out, the high level players. Um, I really don't understand why you would want level 100s in the Misty Mountains, which got revamped to be a level 40 to 45 zone, I believe.
Yeah.
That's less than half the level.
Well, it's similar to the bounties that they had that were all over the place. I think the bounties were around they were around level 50, 60, somewhere in that area, and they popped up in places like the North Downs and the Shire.
Yeah, that's true, but then they changed the bounty system to make it work. You'd think that they would have kind of learned their lesson, I guess. I don't know. It just there's already plenty of content in these well, maybe not Misty Mountains, but in the rest of them there's already plenty of content. I don't know why they think they need to add these in, especially at level 100. At the very least, one change I would like to see is where you have to actually attack the enemy first, or right click on it
Yeah.
to get it to start, so that you don't just get attacked by a level 100 when you're a level 45 or whatever.
That's what I was going to ask because, if I'm a level 40 or something and these guys show up, I mean, if there's nothing I can do, I mean, if I'm a hunter, I can hit desperate flight. Otherwise, I just close my eyes and wait for defeat.
Yeah. Well, the closest thing I remember to something like that is during the epic quest in the Troll Shawls, you have to pick up a bridle from a horse. And when you're doing that quest, you're around level, it's ostensibly a level 37, 38 quest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have these Kargul
Right.
going around nearby who are level 75 because they're for a quest where you're a horse and a level 75 horse and fighting those off. So I don't know what keeps the Kargul from attacking and I try to stay away from them, but if you were in a level 75 zone and you went in that close enough in order to get that bridle, I mean you would have been attacked by mobs all over the place.
Yeah, so I think it needs a little bit of work. I think that especially for new players, because with the Beorning you can get up to you can get up to 45 in a day if you know what you're doing, or even if you don't and you just play a lot for a single day and you've played other MMOs where you know what you're doing. Um, New players
45 in a
might
single
think
day.
that that's just a really hard enemy to kill, and they might even get a group together to take down that enemy. And then, they realize it's a level 100 and they wasted a lot of time trying to kill that guy. Um, it
Well,
just doesn't make any
hopefully,
sense.
hopefully, what's not going to work about this will show up on Bull Roarer. I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully, it's going to show what's the pieces that aren't workable about this idea. I mean, I think the idea is great, but I think you're
hmm
right. I mean, I think the idea of activating it, by attacking first or something like that, if they're going to, especially if they're going to be level 100s. I mean, that just strikes fear in my heart. But yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how this goes.
Well, luckily they are in fairly off places in tiny corners. There's a few that aren't though. Like one of the fellowships was just out in the middle of the zone in Ingmar. And
Jeez.
I didn't understand why that was there. Luckily, they're called roving threats, but they're just staying in one spot. So, luckily,
They're not roving very far.
they're
Oh, well,
not
that's
they're
good.
not roving very far. Um,
I was afraid it meant they just, like happen upon you. And somebody had asked, do they show up on the radar like war bands? And no, they
no,
don't.
they
So
don't.
at
Yeah.
least, I mean, if they were roving, it'd be nice if that at least. But if they're staying in one spot, then that's it's not quite so bad.
Yeah, you can stay away from them, but if you're trying to run away from enemies and then you run into that thing, yeah, that's not because
Oh,
one thing
well.
that surprised me was just how much health they had. I made this video in the newest version where they increased the health dramatically. The Fellowship version, one of them had 2,700,000 morale, and they do a really sizable amount of damage, um, a full Fellowship amount of damage. So these are really tough things to fight, it seems. So at least, they are adding content. It just feels very gimmicky. It feels like that it's really just, I don't know which way it is. I don't know if it's just something to give players something to do, if it's just something so that players can grind to get first stage LIs before the revamp because they knew players were wanting to do that. I don't know why this is, but any way that I think about it, it just seems like a gimmick. And
I
I
like I like the renamed lazily meandering threats. I like that.
yes. Or strolling
Uh,
threats.
Strolling threats.
There
I
better be some
propose lolling
cash.
threats. Lolling threats.
okay.
Okay, I
Casually
have
strolling threats.
yeah, I've justified the system if they put casually strolling threats in Mordor. Then I'm okay.
Let's go to the store sales.
Slayer Deed
Right.
Accelerator is the free sample of the week. You get one of those, and that is one of the 60-minute accelerators. The coupon code this week is PRMQR. Once again, PRMQR, which is one of the oddest codes they've had yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah, I
There,
don't understand the connection there, but okay.
yeah, there's no logic to their codes. That's one per account, like always. 30% off the Gift of the Valor, Third Age item troves, and the Legacy scroll box. And in case you're playing through February 1st, you can get 25% to your experience because Welcome Back Weekend is turned back on.
Yay!
All right, then. Let's head into the players' news then. And we'll begin with a poll on should the level cap be increased in 2015? And what do the viewers say?
Well, they seem to be kind of mixed. Mostly no if you add the no's together. 43% did say yes, and so that makes 57% having said no. But there were two no answers. One was no, but in a future year, with 37%, which is higher, and no, never again, with 21%.
Ah, that's surprising.
This did surprise me. I expected there to be more players wanting a level increase, mostly because LOTRO doesn't have very many other progression systems. Um, I mean, there are LIs, there is your War Steed, but those don't last nearly as long as leveling has the potential to. And so that kind of surprised me that, more people don't want this. That being said, when they kept the level cap increase with Central Gondor, the content did get a lot harder. And so there were a lot of comments about why people voted no, just because they want that harder content to stay. And so I can kind of see that argument, but eventually it's just going to keep getting harder and harder to the point where I don't think you'd want to do it. They need to have some kind of alternate type of advancement, and luckily they are doing the LI revamp, and so maybe that's going to be enough. We'll have to wait and see on that one. I hope at the very least that they keep giving us skill points so we can keep expanding what our characters can do. We need some kind of goal for our characters to keep going. Because otherwise, and particularly to go in these zones that are still at level 100, because otherwise some players reach the level cap and then that's it, they're done until the level cap increases again. So, I don't know.
All right. Now, speaking of 100, LOTRO Academy has posted their 100th episode.
That was a segue.
You are the Segway King. You're going from Skirmish King to Segway King.
Skirmish Sultan to Segway Sultan.
Segway Sultan. Yes, absolutely.
Very well then. Drac, what did you think about the episode?
Well, as seeing I was on it, I thought it was a really good episode. No, no, just kidding. No, it was a well put together episode. Some of the old hosts came back and did some interviews with them, so it was good to hear some of those folks. And it was great to hear some of the highlights from the past 100 episodes and our goals for this year, except mine, because I actually didn't make it to the taping of the episode
well, we
in time.
voiced yours.
I know. Well, Mystery did, and I'll have a talk with her later.
Oh, what did she do to you?
Well, listen to the episode and
Finally, if you
find
were
out.
on there.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, that's right. She added some that were not on Drac's list.
Yes, she did. So
Yeah, I definitely think that this is one of my favorite Academy episodes. It's a very good 100th episode to have, and I really enjoyed hearing a lot of familiar voices. And also, it was really well edited considering how it was originally recorded in various segments. And so, hats off to Brannick, you did a fantastic job, and great job everyone else. It's been a really great podcast over the last 100 episodes. Keep up the great work.
Well, we also had a new episode of LOTRO Players Adventures. Episode 28 were cute little tiny war ponies.
Did you say 28?
he
Because
did say 28.
It's episode
He did,
48.
but I was
finally.
gonna let it go.
48.
Don't make me do epic battles again. We're on 48. Come on.
Okay, 48, yes.
We did do epic battles today with 49, yeah, but with 48 we did fight war bands throughout Western Rohan and finish that up, and so had a lot of fun speeding our way around Rohan. And so if you're
especially on
interested in watching that, feel
cute
free to.
tiny four ponies.
Yes, that did quickly become a joke. So listen to find out why, but it's pretty self-explanatory, I think.
Very well. And in Lotrification, we have a Middle Earth comic book covers. And
Oh, zinger.
yes, yes, that's yes, the Captain Gondor. Yes.
I
Yeah,
think my favorite is the R for ready check, though.
yeah, these were great. Real quick, just to explain this for those, it has been a while since Ultrification. Um, Basically, this is just taking something in our world and applying Lotro to it for a parody. And this time it was comic books, and there are some really funny ones in here. And as always, Zinger just does an amazing job. And Zinger's in the chat right now booing himself. So
Doing himself?
he is, yeah. No, it's awesome, Zinger. Don't listen to Zinger. He's great. Um, that was a sentence. All right.
All right, then. Let's head on then into the Lotro video highlights. Early Lotro trailer.
Yes.
How early?
For a long time, I had been looking for a trailer that was before Lotro's launch, because IGN used to have them, but then they cleared out their library a while ago, which is understandable because those were videos back in 2006. So I don't know why you would keep old Lotro trailers on your site. But someone luckily saved it on YouTube, and I finally found it the other day, and so decided to release it. And I really enjoyed this early trailer. At the time, it does not hold up the best anymore, just because MMO trailers have become so much more cinematic and so much more like film. In 2006, game trailers were game trailers. They were not like film at all. And they showed a whole lot of gameplay and just general scenery and took a lot longer. It's like watching a film from the 40s or 30s, and there's a lot more quiet time compared to the action-packed, wall-to-wall action of today.
Okay.
And this trailer is kind of that for Lotro. So if you're curious how Lotro used to be advertised, this is a great way to find out.
And what was Midway's involvement in all this?
Well, Midway was the publisher, I believe, originally. Turbine was the developer, and Midway was the publisher, although Turbine did have some publishing rights in the deal as well, I believe. But they were partnered together for publishing and marketing, I believe.
All right, very well. Then we'll head into part 29 of the family line, a chance meeting, where after the last time they head in further into well, Enenwythe now, and you could see what the adventures are happening in there.
Yeah, it's not cheating to go to another zone, but I'm wondering how many
Thank
more
heavens.
zones. Trish, I'm wondering how many more zones they're going to go into because, we could end up with like 1,000 episode series if he goes into all the zones in Locha right now.
Well, you got to remember he does have to go into the Troll Shalls and into Fornos for a reason
Yep,
because I believe he has stated that in so far in there because that's what the quest is for.
yep.
So
And
he has to go
so
through all the zones in between.
don't get me wrong, it does make a lot of sense. But, this series has already been going on for so long, and it's so creative to, have the change of scenery help it continue on. I was just giving him a hard time. But
Yeah.
it's really good and, keeps getting better like I've said before. So definitely check out the family line if you have not. And if you're not caught up, get caught up because it's awesome.
All right then. We'll then head off then into the new player question. And Trish, what's the new player question this week?
Wahahaha. This is my favorite part because I get to ask the guys that have been teaching me LOTRO all this time. Well, I'm curious what you guys, where you're at about plugins, because I know there's quite a number of, quite a library of plugins out there for LOTRO. I happen to use one for my user interface. Do you use them? And if you do, what plugins are you using? Let's see. Draculetta, you go first. We haven't heard from you.
I do not use plugins whatsoever.
Oh, okay. Any reason? I mean, just not interested and don't need them?
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
see any reason to use them. I mean, some people like them. That's good. I just don't want to use them.
Yeah, the only reason I don't use plugins is because I'm always afraid that when the next update comes out, it's going to break the plugin,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then I'm going to be handicapped because I don't know how to play on the normal interface. Um,
Right.
and so I just kind of keep the core game, and that way I also get to complain about things I don't like about the interface too. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, if everyone used huge bag, then we wouldn't have had the bag changes in game, and so
Right. Right.
I definitely really enjoy watching other people use plugins, but for me personally, I don't want to become handicapped because, they cause it to break, the changes to the
Right.
game cause it to break. Um, but I definitely see their value and definitely respect the people who take the time to actually code it and, release it out for free. That's awesome.
All
Well,
right,
that
and
is one
that
of the risks because, people that code it, it's like how many how many revisions can we expect? You know what I mean? It's like I noticed when I went on there were some that were like had not really been kept up, or they had at least made a note of saying, I'm not going to be doing anymore. And I thought, well, that's kind of a risk,
Hmm.
yeah,
to
there
get
is.
that in.
Yeah, currently I have 6 plugins that I routinely
Wow.
use.
Okay.
Yes, one of them is called Titan Bar, and that has not been updated in a while. Which is, for example, Titan Bar doesn't know anything about Bjornings.
What does Titan Bar do?
Titan Bar is a bar that's at the top of your screen that tells you all sorts of pertinent information about your character, and you
Oh,
could
okay.
you could do it. You could set it up any way you want. One of the abilities it has in there is keeping up with inventory in that what's in your bags and what's in your vault and stuff like this. So you could examine your vault from anywhere because you don't have to be a vault keeper because Titan Bar remembers it. It not only remembers what's in your vault, it remembers what's in the vault of every character on the
Wow.
server. So
Wow.
therefore, if I want to see if an alt has a particular item in their bags or in the vault, I just use Titan Bar in order to do this. It is also a feature of Huge Bag. Since I no longer use Huge Bag, I use that feature in Titan Bar
Titan
instead. It's
Bar.
done by the same author who did Huge Bag.
Okay.
Second one that I use is C time because Titan Bar's clock is only goes down to the minute, so I use C time because it goes down to the
Of
second.
course you do, Pine Leaf. Of course you do.
Then there's buff bars, which keeps track of any buffs and debuffs that are on your character.
Oh, okay.
And it also, one thing that it does is you could set it up so that it activates certain hot buttons when certain debuffs are on you. For example, if you have a wound on you, it will pop something up, and usually you throw a potion into that slot so that you could press that button and use that on a potion. I usually don't actually use that feature all that much now I think because I usually see the wound pop up on the buff bar's main, so I don't usually use the pop-ups thing as much as I use the main part of buff bars itself. And there's daily tasks. What daily task does is it tells me where the nearest bulletin board is and what items I have in my inventory that can be turned in there. And the
Oh,
author of that keeps that up to date. Whenever there's an update with new task boards and new rep stuff in there, he puts an update on there. So, of course, if we ever have an update with a new region where he doesn't update it, then yeah, it becomes less useful at that point.
yeah. Right. Right.
The other two I only really use on my musician characters. So that's mainly minstrels, but my hunter on Langeville occasionally also does concerts instead when we're doing the clarinet group because that's all hobbits. And as a result, what we do there is that songbook is a piece that you're able to scroll through your list of musical pieces, click on it, then select which part you want, click on that, and you can use a button to go into music mode and click another button to go into the synchronization so you don't have to manually type in all that stuff.
Okay.
Now, that one is a little bit out of date, but it works just as well now, even though it's a little bit dated. Someone is trying to publish a new version of it. I don't like the new version as much as I like the original version, so I've stuck with the original version for now. And another one is something I think it's by a member of the Lonely Mountain Band called Band Aid. And what that does is that when you're in a musical group, when everybody's syncing into a piece, it's able to keep track of all who have synchronized. This is a relatively recent plugin. So therefore you know when everybody in your group or raid has done their syncing because it's able to follow the chat window and put it in there. And I'm finding that works very well. And in fact, since that's been released, I've noticed that a lot of bands where before, a couple of months ago, if we were in a band, you were told, whatever you do, do not start singing to the next piece until the previous piece is over because that will just cause confusion and people won't notice that you synced in. Well, now it's getting common to sync in before the previous piece is over, so you could go in right away because Band-Aid keeps track of it.
That is amazing. The whole music system, it's like a whole nother learning curve.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thanks. That's great. So, Pineleaf, you definitely make up for the fact that Draculetta and Andang don't use plugins.
And
So,
finally,
yeah.
Yeah.
I have a serious question for you.
All right.
Is there anything you don't know about?
Navigation in the Etmors PvP. That's pretty much the only thing that Pineleaf
Okay.
doesn't know. One thing I would recommend is there are, and these are probably outdated by now, but CSTM, Merrick did used to make video guides, and while the site CSTM is no longer available, they do have on their YouTube channel those video guides still on there. And so if
Oh, okay.
you are interested in like learning how a particular plugin works, that's probably your best bet for finding out. That's probably the largest amount of plugin videos that are out there right now. So.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm using any of the ones they talk about now. I think they do have one for buff bars,
And maybe
but
Titan Bar.
I
I
don't
don't
know about
remember.
Titan Bar. I don't know if they
Yeah,
discussed
they
that
they
one.
did have quite a few videos though. So
Yes, I know they had quite a few Bailey, and I know they did one for Busy Bee, but I think Busy Bee hasn't been updated for years, and Daily Task is. So I think Daily Task is probably more suitable these days than Busy Bee is, and Busy
hmm
Bee was another thing to keep track of tasks.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. I mean, at least the ones you've listed we know are working because you're using them now. So
Right, because
that's
I'm using them, and if you want to see how they work, if you look at any of my videos, at least the first four I named, the non-musical ones, you will see those in action. You won't see the musical ones since I'm not playing music in any of the videos that I do.
but everything else, the in-game play stuff, we can
Right,
see
right.
from
The
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 interface.
four I
Yeah.
named. Oh yes, right
Right.
there. My minstrels also have another one called. Let's see what minstrel buff, which keeps track of your anthems and how and your tiers for that thing. So therefore, it
Oh,
pops the anthems when you need them. So I don't think it's all that really necessary because I think I have one minstrel that doesn't use it and another one that does. So you can see I'm not exactly consistent in using it myself.
right.
And Zinger in the chat recommends that you should check out the LOTRO plugin compendium.
Right.
It's a program that'll help you search and install plugins as well as helps you keep track of any updates for all of your plugins.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
I found the skin for my user interface. Yeah, it was a really useful site.
Right. As I don't know if you wanted to discuss skins or if that's an entirely different topic.
We'll save that. We should save
Okay.
that, don't you think? I'll put skin in the game for
Okay.
another time.
Very well then. Then let's go into news beyond Lotro, where we have the second part of the Kings of Gondor. And as you would expect, if part one was about Elendil, then the second part is about his eldest son, Isildur. And this talks about Isildur's history quite thoroughly. It starts with his time in Numenor and then continues all the way down until, well, let's just say the ring's not known as Isildur's Bane for nothing.
Yep, and as always, just fantastic artwork that he's found throughout the internet and compiled to, the specific lore topic that he's talking about. I really do enjoy the artwork every time.
Yes, very nice on that. And that then brings us into our skirmish of the week. Draculetta, what is this week's skirmish?
The topic this week you guys are going to discuss is which is the best description of Bree? And we're talking about the town only.
It is
About the
depiction, by the way, not description.
Yes. Or depiction, sorry.
Hey, episode 28, description, what
That's
the
right.
heck.
Yes, so which is the best depiction of Bree?
Right. Now,
Town
when you
only.
Town only, that means you're ignoring the three side villages.
Correct.
All right. Well, the books don't say much about the side villages anyway, so I guess that's probably
Yeah, and the
Fair,
main
makes
thing I
sense.
put town only was so that we didn't have like a Barrow Downs discussion this week and like all the other stuff included in Breland. So I
So
figured that would make it a lot more level playing field.
we'll start off by going around and just everybody state which one you're going to argue for. So let's start with Anding.
I will be arguing for the games.
Okay, how about Trish?
I'm arguing for the films.
And Pine Leaf, what do you have?
and I'll be stating the case for the books.
Well, of course you will. All right, let's start. We'll start this week with Trish. How's that?
Oh, great. That's just peachy. Um, I think the depiction of Bree, well, two levels of depiction of Bree that I like in the films that I think has really brought it to life for me. One is the fact that it's a medieval village. I mean, it fits the tenor of Tolkien's world. I mean, he's a medievalist. It tracks with I think what Jackson assumed was Tolkien's vision, and happens to track with my opinion of Tolkien's vision as well. So you had the muddy streets, you had the kind of dirty, the carrot who was dirty, and filthy, and that's that's the second piece, which is that it's dark. It's like I definitely get the feeling every time I've seen it, both in The Hobbit and in Lord of the Rings. You definitely get this feeling of, don't stray too far off the lit street, because this is a dangerous place. Even Nazgul notwithstanding, it's just, kind of not a super safe place to be. And then the characters, in the Prancing Pony, I mean, it just all sort of lends itself really well to the whole air of kind of danger and risk and whatnot. So, I mean, I think that the films did a really nice job of depicting, at least my view of what Bree would be like.
Okay, how about Pine Leaf? Let's hear about the books.
Within the books, one of the most important things about Bree is that this is the only location, this and the satellite villages, are the only location where men and hobbits form a community that's integrated with each other. They are both essential to the flourishing of Bree. This is very different from the Shire, which is hobbits only, or from Gondor or Rohan, which are men only. And this is made very, very clear within the books. where you talk about this, even though you have this prancing pony, it has two stories and it looks big and impressive to the hobbits. It looks too big. How could this place could be a comfortable place? But Parliament Butterbur has the place made perfectly so that he has rooms that are perfectly suited for hobbits. And in fact, that's the reason why they were able to find rooms was because all the travelers that were going around at the time were big folk and none of them wanted the hobbit rooms. So they were able to get along because of this. You have them interacting with various hobbits within the Prancing Pony and they become very integral to the story on what happens there. So therefore, it's this integration of men and hobbits. And even when they return at the end, when Butterbur gives the account of the events from from the Thievery Mischief event, he's talking about how he said how many died. He says 3 and 2, meaning 3 big folk, 2 little folk, because they're both important and they both must be named, and that's how they keep things working on their play. So therefore, it is a safe haven from the rest of the world, those getting a little bit in danger as a result of the dangers that are oppressing from all around. I don't consider Bree a dangerous place in general. I think it's only the recent incidents that make it a potentially dangerous place.
Okay, and ending. How about the games?
There's a reason why players have concerts mostly in Bree. There's a reason why on Landerville there's always a player playing outside the Prancing Pony. And there's a reason why they added the stage when they revamped Bree later on. It's because players love being inside Bree. And you have to keep in mind, it is a fairly dreary place, but that's mostly because the hobbits are describing it, and it's one of the first places that they go to. And so to them, basically anywhere they go to first outside of the Shire is going to be a very dreary place by comparison. And so one thing also to keep in mind is that in the films, it takes that dreariness to a whole nother level. And I think it does a good job showing how the players, or how the characters are outside of their comfort zone, but at the same time, it does a terrible job showing how Bree actually is in reality. And one thing I love about LOTRO is that it does a great job, especially post revamp. They made things look a little bit more medieval, a little bit more run down, and made it be much more fitting into the book, while also making it be a really cheery place where people can play songs and have a lot of fun. And so I think that they've done a great job balancing those two ideas and concepts and bringing them into a place where players can really enjoy being in the game and having fun playing the game. And also, you look at Barlaam Butterbur, he's very well represented. You go on the tour around Bree and you get to see all the various places and see kind of the economy and stuff like that. And you just get to walk around this city that feels like a real living place. And until we get to later places in uh, Rohan and Gondor, we don't really have a city that feels as real as Bree. And so they did such a great job knocking it out of the park. And that's why so many role players just stick around Bree, because it was really well done.
Okay, does anybody have any rebuttals from what
Uh,
anybody said?
yes, I will have one little rebuttal here.
Okay.
I noticed there Andang used the word city. And that's what it feels a little bit like in Lotro, in that they created a city here. And to me, Bree isn't supposed to be a city. It's supposed to be a large village or small town. And a more intimate location where people tend to know each other and you know what's going on. When you start turning to a city, you don't have people knowing each other. Although you know the people in your community, but you don't know the people in the entire city. So I feel that the Bree in the games is a bit larger than a true Bree should be.
I disagree, Pineleaf. I think Bree is the correct size, and you can't really cut it down that much if you consider the amount of space that everything in Bree actually takes up. You have the town hall, you have the all these things that players need, like the various cosmetic things, and then you have the prancing pony that takes up a lot of space. Plus, they have to have the characters in their own little rooms, and so all that takes up a lot of space. And so Bree actually isn't really that big. It just feels like it is because there are these buildings that end up taking up a lot of space. If you look at the actual number of housing and stuff like that, there's quite a lot there, but not really that much. And so I think that especially within their own communities, like the hobbits, I'm sure know each other because there aren't that many hobbits. And I'm sure, all the menfolk have, they at least know Barleyman and some other key characters in the town, I'm sure.
Now, I gotta say, the films work well because when it rains, the streets actually get muddy in the films.
Those mud physics, man.
People get wet when it rains, like,
You want them to
Thorin did.
splash water out of the screen?
4D.
So yeah, so you get a little more reality, with the film's depiction of Bree, people that haven't bathed and whatnot.
There's people who have not bathed for 7 years in LOTRO.
All right, Drag, what's the verdict?
Okay. Anybody have anything else to add, or is everybody?
Well, I mean, there's also a lot of little details in Bree, like the guards that they added patrolling around and going away after the night ends. There's the people there's the ladies in the windows that pop their heads out and sometimes like throw stuff out of the window. It's very rare when that they throw stuff, but they actually do every now and then if your graphics are on the right setting. And so there's just all this detail in the city, and they did such a good job bringing Bree to life that players just really love it and love staying around there.
Okay, before I render down my verdict here, I just want to say that Terry Adwin in the chat says that Pineleaf should be handicapped because he used a LOTRO reference in his argument. He referenced the Thievery and Mischief skirmish.
Yes.
No, yeah, referencing words were used by Barleyman Butterbur inside Return of the King.
Pineleaf, you could not have described the books without thinking about skirmishes and Bree, which just strengthens my argument that much more.
Okay, you all had very good arguments again this week, which I applaud you all for that. And this might come as a surprise this week, but I think I'm gonna have to say that Trish won this one.
What?
And that's
what?
But the reason why is the first time I read the books. When I read the books and I read about Bree, I had a medieval feel in my mind. And when I saw the movie, I thought that's exactly how I pictured it in my mind when I was reading the books. Exactly what Jackson did in the films.
Wow.
So
wow.
That's what won it for you, is when you said medieval, because that's just for some reason reading the books for the first time, that's what I got and that's what I had pictured.
I need to say medieval more.
Yeah. Yeah, gee, that's great. Well, thanks, Draculetta. I'm like
She said thanks. You probably paid him ahead of time. That's totally, this is bribed.
It's like, I'll be PayPaling you some money afterwards.
Great. Brack still owes me from the first week too, but that's a different story.
Yep, and as always, we're just doing this for fun. We all would probably pick the book answers at the end of the day.
Well, should we tell them that I actually took one for the team and went for the movie, because originally I was on the book team. I was on the game team, and so I moved to the films just because.
Yeah, at fairly last minute. So you did a really good job.
All right, very well. Now so Drac received a Patreon donation from Trish. We did not receive any Patreon mentions, but we will love your support. To help support LOTRO players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you will find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even a guest spot on an episode of LOTRO Players News or Adventures. As for feedback, we did not receive any iTunes reviews, but we do have a featured comment from Sue, who left a comment on last week's show. I would like to say that this was truly one of the most enjoyable shows I have ever listened to. Great presentation of the professor and Trish, having each such personalities involved in projects with Lotro can only bode well for the future, and I am even tempted to dust off my cappy on Landy and come and join in the educational roller coaster ride on Mondays.
That's a great, great description of it.
A very
Educational roller
wordy
coaster.
and intelligent show. Well done, all. Two questions I would love to get an opinion on. One directly related to the skirmish and hinted at the professor is: are elves portrayed as being stupid in Lotro? In response to my own Lotro play this week, where I have been rescuing elves, supposedly thousands of years old, yet still getting stuck in spiders' webs in Mirkwood. Elves depicted as if they just had fallen off the turnip wagon. Love it. So, anyone have anything to answer concerning this first question?
Well, Corey is really good at pointing stuff like that out. You know, in his book about The Hobbit, he points out the fact that in the book The Hobbit, the dwarves are pretty clueless, you know, which is stuff, you know, like I remember when I read that in his book, I was like, you know, he's got a point there. I hadn't really thought of that, you know, so he's really good at spotting that stuff. But I would say, I mean, I don't know that elves are portrayed as any more stupid than, say, you know, for example, I'm in the middle of doing volume 3 of The Gray Company now, and you know, these guys are kind of like doofuses. I mean, you know, so I don't think elves are the only, I don't think it's like, you know, restricted strictly to elves. I
Oh,
mean, I I
yeah,
don't know. I
they
don't
have
know.
some elven blood in them.
That's true. They do.
Distantly descended from Elros.
That's true. That's true. You know, it's interesting. I actually, when Corey was talking about that last week, you know, I thought one good point. I think we continued a discussion actually into Mythgard Monday because a couple people had some stuff to say about it. And, you know, it was kind of like, well, you know, they kind of even Tolkien in the books present them as being kind of insular, you know, a little ethnocentric. I mean, you know, Thranduil's representation in the Hobbit movies is not all that far off. I mean, you know, Thingol and the Silmarillion. I mean, they always have been sort of, you know, very much insulated in of themselves. And so I think maybe that's what maybe is being portrayed in Lotro, and maybe it just kind of comes up. Maybe it doesn't always work.
All right. The second question is Middle Earth language related. Can anyone translate the following? Latu Gosmers Bagul from Epic Volume 2, Book 9, Fortress of the Nazgul, Chapter 10, The Exchange. Mazag the Orc exclaims this upon Broin's return.
No, we can't translate
We'd
that.
have to ask. We'd have to ask
But
Chris Peterson probably.
but wow, that was good pronunciation. At least you convinced me finally. Um, Back to the previous question though, I think a lot of the reason why elves are portrayed as not being the most intelligent is just because they've been around so long that they don't care as much, I think.
Mm.
And so, you know, they don't care so much about the troubles of men and things like that. And also, some of them just aren't used to going through spider webs and doing things like that on a regular basis. They just sit around all day. I mean, they're kind of, you know, slobs in a way, but you know, I think that that's just the main thing is that they don't do things that often. While they have been a long time and you know have kept track
Well,
of things, they
the
don't do
Mirkwood
enough
elves
often enough.
the Mirkwood elves better know about spider webs. They,
Yeah, they should probably
now the
know about that.
Maladrim, yeah, maybe they don't.
So, I mean, yeah, they do die a lot in Lotro, but they seem at least more logical than the ones in the films, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, very well. If you'd like to email us, you can email us at podcast@lotroplayers.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter. The Players Alliance at Players Ally, Lotro Players at Lotro Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Draculetta at Draculetta_72, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Niels, and Trish at Trish Lambert.
I need more syllables in my name. That's the problem. It's kind of like a downer, after going through Andang, Braxwolf, Dracula, Pineleaf, Trish. I'll work on that. I'll work on that.
All right. The Players Alliance has 3 live shows a week. On Mondays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News. At Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time. Yes, that is 6:30 rather than 8:30. The Guild Wars Players time has moved. We have Guild Wars Players News. And on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have LOTRO Players News. And you can join us for our live shows at lotroplayers.com/live. And you can join us for Langeville for Lotro Players Adventures each Saturday at 5 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, but I highly recommend doing that soon because we are nearing the end of the run. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Pine Leaf Needles, and remember to skirmish responsibly.